Hi, everyone. We're waiting for a few more people to join and then we'll get started. Thank you. Hi, everyone. We're waiting for a few more people to join and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us at TheVentureCity. I'm Quesada Covey, and we have the amazing fortune to have this incredible leader, woman, executive, mother, spouse, friend, cousin to our very own Rodrigo here with us. Just for those of you who have not met her before, Maria Teresa Mariate Arnal is currently the business lead of Latam for Stripe. She joined Stripe from Google, where she was the managing director for Mexico. Her background spans for many years in ad tech at companies such as Microsoft, Twitter, and Google, and also in managing consulting from Booz Allen and BCG. And she also started her own company. So she is very familiar with the challenges and opportunities of being an entrepreneur. She is passionate about how technology can help solve many of the problems in Latin America, and particularly the impact that Stripe can have for the economic landscape by growing the GDP of the internet. She is also excited about helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses and supporting women in their quest for empowerment and realizing their full potential. We're super, super excited to have her here with us today at our brand new Miami campus. So join me with a big virtual applause for Mariate as she is here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chester. It's a super pleasure. It's my honor to be here. It's beautiful offices and campus. It's amazing. Super excited.
Thank you. And I don't know if we've given you a tour of the outside yet.
No, we will.
Okay.
At the end.
We're going to do a tour of the outside afterwards. And to everyone that's watching and listening, we have this beautiful outside area that we plan to do lots of events with lots of avocado trees. So very tropical, very Miami.
Yeah.
And so you will all be invited to come to campus to enjoy. We need to make like guacamole or some avocado salad or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll be here. This is not going to be my last time. No. My first, not my last.
No,
for sure.
And we always say this. I normally wait until the end of the conversation to say this, but we always talk about how you're always a part of the TVC family. And so you are part of the TVC family. So you for sure, this is not the last time. You're now.
And I have to say, I felt very, very welcome last night in Laura's house. It's amazing. You've got something really, a vibe here that it's amazing. So
thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so let's get started. So why did you start your career in tech? So you were at a consulting firm and you had the opportunity probably to go anywhere. And most of your colleagues probably went for a more traditional path. Why did you choose tech?
I don't think that this was like a very thoughtful decision at the time. Like when I think about it, right? It's like, it's hard to say it. It's easy to say it now, but this is 1999. And I went out of business school. And, when I was at business school, there was like the word, of the day was convergence. Like everything was converging, right? It's like cable and TV. And so this is very long ago. And I remember I said, well, I was going to Mexico because of personal reasons. And I said, well, I'm not going to move from like what I know already because I'm moving to a new country. Let's just keep consulting, which is what I was doing before. And then, I went back to consulting, BCG at the time. And I was at BCG and all the consultants at the time, we were all making business plans at night. So we spent all the day hours working like crazy because consulting made you work like 16 hours a day, and then all of our nighttime doing business plans, and we did all kind of business plans. And at some point I said, this is real. I am going to go do something about this because this is like the new frontier. Like people are literally the next industrial revolution. So I had a friend who went with me to B school, and he was starting this company, which interestingly enough, was part of the financial services industry at the time. It was called Latin Stocks. It was very similar to Patagon. Do you remember Patagon? Yeah. Yes. So he called me up and he's like, Mariate, we're opening our office in Mexico. I would love, for you to come. And I'm like, oh, but I'm like paying my student debt. And I was like, okay, so I'll do double shift. So I was working in consulting and at Latin Stocks at the same time, which was like completely crazy. And then an opportunity came up. I kind of started understanding the space, and I said, this is special. Like, it has a special energy. People want to change the world. People want to do meaningful things. And then Microsoft came and said, we're launching MSN in Mexico and we want to, come part of the team, be part of the team. And then I just didn't think it twice. It's like,
that's awesome.
I don't really think that I said, hey, this is the future or whatever. No, I just said, yeah, this is fun. Yeah. I'm learning, which I think is what really drove me here. It's like there's never-ending learning opportunities in this industry. And that's something that is very close to my heart. So yeah, that's a story.
How do you balance, so in your career in tech, you have been on the entrepreneurial side and you have been working for the biggest companies in the industry at really important moments of their growth. How do you balance wanting to be an entrepreneur with also wanting to work at a larger company? And how do you personally balance that? Because it's something that we hear a lot from our entrepreneurs, which is, and that I've thought about a lot in my career. How do you balance that like entrepreneurial spirit with also the opportunity to be a part of something that's so big and has the opportunity to scale so wide?
Yeah, I think that once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur, right? It's like you can't, and I do believe in this concept of entrepreneurship, which, at the end of the day, being an entrepreneur means you want to do things that change, right? The way things normally operate, and you see opportunity for bringing additional value, and, you lean in, right? You are like taking the lead to do things that can have an impact. And I think that that's probably one of the things that is the kind of what drives, if you look back at my career, what have made my career change moves is basically the having the ability to make an impact. When I felt like I can't make an impact anymore, or I am in a place where it's beginning to be, kind of, oh, let's operate this business that is just like ongoing and so on, then I'm like, I'm done here. I want to do things. I want to build. I want to create. And I think I have been able to do that in environments that are more complex, like big corporations. And when I felt like it's no longer that place where you can build, but it's more like a place, again, like you have to manage and don't get too creative. Then it's like, okay, well, bye, thank you. Yeah. So it's knowing kind of what you thrive at, right? And it took me a long time to understand that. Again, 2020 is hindsight, right? And I think it took me a long time to understand that. But once I understood it, it's like, okay, now I know, I feel more like in the driving seat. I know what I like to do. I know what I want to do. And I want to make sure that opportunities that come across have that. And that's why I'm at Stripe right now. It's a company that, it's still kind of in Latin America, very much a startup, right? We're still very early in the development of the region. The company's, already scaling up very fast. And, but I still have, it's a playground. It's like, let's do this, right? It's so much opportunity, so much to do. It feels like just a startup. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And, I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs. I think that's probably the people I respect the most, because I think that you have to be a very special person to start a business. Like, it's really, you have to have a lot of grit, a lot of character, a lot of resilience. You have to be super, a lot of conviction, lots of them mission driven. And I think that that is just, something that I look up to. So when I decided to be an entrepreneur many years ago, it was probably, again, I don't think that I was like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be an entrepreneur. It was just like, oh, I'm kind of done with what I'm doing here. I was at Microsoft at that time, and it's like, this is great, but now I need another challenge. And at the time, it was very clear that there was an opportunity for, the company we wanted to build. And I said, let's do this, right? And it was kind of at that time, it was kind of a crazy decision, because I had 2 kids, I was divorced, I was living in Mexico, and I had this very big corporate job. And, one day I said, I'm basically going to quit, and I'm going to start this company. And the day I quit was the day before Lehman Brothers went bankrupt.
Oh, so that timing was really fun.
That timing was
perfect.
And I remember, I was coming back, and everybody was like, what did you just do? I mean, the world is like melting apart, and you are going to start a business. And I'm like, yes, we're going to start a business. It was, I still remember, it was like my hands sweat a bit, because it was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But, we just went through with it, and it was great. And it was probably one of the best experiences, if not the best experience I've ever had in my professional career. And so, when people ask me like all these big corporate jobs that you've had and so on, what's like the best experience or the experience that you think taught you the most or you enjoy the most? I always say, being an entrepreneur, because it's like, it's about who you are. It's about your values. It's about what you reflect. It's like another children.
Every entrepreneur says that it's sort of, it fulfills you, but it also challenges you in ways that with my children, that it's so fulfilling, and it challenges you in ways that you never expected to be challenged. And it really, you learn so much from those opportunities and those moments, and you grow so much that it makes you a much better, richer person.
Totally.
What are some of those moments when you think back at as you were starting your company, and that you take with you now to Stripe, where you're like, that unlocked something for me, that being in that seat is why now I am able to do this better, or why now I recognize those patterns more? Or like, what are some of those lessons that you took into with you in your current role?
So, I look back fondly at my time at Microsoft, because it was it was a time where I was there 9 years, and again, early 2000s, and the commercial internet was kind of being created and shaped, and so it felt very much like a startup, again, within Microsoft, because the commercial business was, like Windows and so on, was completely separate. We had nothing to do with that team. We barely knew that team at the end. We were like this separate team that was doing this crazy thing that we didn't really know what it was. And, but it was also very structured because it had, kind of all the structure that Microsoft had.
Right.
And I think that was very forming. So I remember, I still remember, like, I was first a manager when I was at Microsoft, and I remember all the management and leadership courses that I took there, and they really helped me. And I still remember things, right? It's like, hey, how to give feedback. I remember how to give feedback out of, this course that I took one day in Redmond, and so. And I really appreciate that, because then that gave me a very good platform on where to go and do other things on my own, and then have, again, this ability to put one foot here and one foot there in the kind of entrepreneur but also corporate world that I think I can navigate to an extent. And I think that again, I think that being an entrepreneur was that critical moment when I was able to first understand that there's nothing permanent. Everything passes, right? And so I think that that's an approach that being a probably controlling person in my personality, right? It's like and like structure and driven and let's do this, and that helped me a lot understand that you're never going to control everything, right? And that if you take a step back and you just breathe, you'll see that things you drive things and you want to make things happen for sure, but you also want to lean back and say, okay, so let's see what happens now. Right. It's like the magic happens, right? And sometimes magic happens, and even when you don't understand what's going on here, and I'm not sure, you're like, let me try to read the signals, and maybe I just need to step back and not again. And that, I think that has helped me a lot in not clinging to things sometimes too much. Right. And also allowing things to unfold in a way that at the end of the day, I think have been better.
Yeah. It's such good advice. It's hard advice to hear. Earlier in my career, the advice that I got from a mentor was, you care too much. And I didn't understand exactly what that advice meant, but it's that ability to take a step back and say, like, magic needs to happen. And I would suggest for anyone hearing this, like, maybe you don't say it exactly how my mentor said it, because it did not land well. And also I wasn't ready to hear it, but it is that sort of, that maturity and that experience that lets you say, like, there are some things that are going to be outside of my control. And that's where the magic really does happen. I don't know, it allowed me to step into a different part of my career that I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, I think that you care too much, I've heard many times. So it just resonated with me.
It's like the worst way of saying it, though. But the way that you said it is the right way, which is like, sometimes the magic happens when you just take a step back.
Yeah, I just went through a coaching exercise where I've done coaching many times in my career. And I think that if you have never leaned into coaching, you're making a mistake.
You should, yes, 100% agree. And it like holds a mirror up to your face that makes you really uncomfortable, but you come out of it so much stronger.
Of course, it's really a way to grow. And, I don't know why people like shy away from it, or is this stigma where, if you need coaching, it's because you're having performance issues. No,
right.
I mean, I just want coaching because I want to be better and I want to improve, and you can always be better.
Yes.
You'll always be better.
Yes.
If you really want to, right? Yes. And my coach just told me, is like, that caring too much, which she framed it in a very good point, that caring too much, because that's part of me. It's never going to leave me, right? It's like I fight it, but it's within my essence.
It's not just work; it's personal life.
Oh, too. Absolutely, yeah.
I translate across.
We were just telling each other anecdotes about taking planes and how we care.
We care. Yes.
And so when but she told me, it's like you just have to understand when that can become a force of, not good, but a force of things you are moving into. You're stepping into a zone where that ceases to be your strength.
Yes.
Because it is your strength.
Yes.
So caring too much is a strength.
Yes.
And don't lose it.
Yes.
But just take the step back and look at it from the perspective of when is it becoming like any strength? When is it becoming my worst enemy?
Yes. Yes. When does it take over?
Yeah.
And it takes over. Yeah. Like on the airplane where it might have taken over just a little bit. I want to pivot and talk about Latin America and the career that you've had there. There is, Laura and I know each other from working in Latam, and there is so much energy, so much opportunity in Latam. And it always feels like we're on the brink of tapping that opportunity into
tipping point.
Exactly. How do you feel about that language? And do you think that if it's right that we're sort of on the brink, how are you in your role at Stripe catalyzing on that tipping point?
Yeah. So the tipping point is something that I have heard of for the last very, very last 20 years. And since I started in tech, right? It's like, now it's a moment. I remember like when there were like 1 million users in Mexico, internet users in Mexico. It's like, oh, wow, 1 million internet users in a 120 million people country, right? So I think that we are in a very special moment right now. And probably, when I see the world, and again, when I step back and I see the world, then it's kind of a complicated world right now, right? And, a little bit. But I think Latin America has a difference with respect to how we can make technology work for the region. That doesn't necessarily apply fully to developed countries. And because I think that there are so many gaps that we need to fill, right?
Right.
And you name it. It's like transportation, financial inclusion, you name it, water. It's just like the whole basic infrastructure, even, right? It's like things that we need to bridge.
Right.
And I think that technology in general, in the broadest of its meaning is the way where we are going to be able to do that. And there are many examples in Latin America and where, technology has made a difference. And just think about women in Latin America that did not have access to information. And once they had, a cellular phone, there is research that says that when you give a woman a phone, a woman is empowered.
Yes.
And that means that then, women can, know things, go places, do things, and stop being like put down by other people, right? So that's kind of the optic that I see on how I see the opportunity in Latam. And that's why I'm so passionate about the region, because I think that if we do it right, and that's important to say it, if we do it right, we can make a big difference. I was just talking to George Gordon, who runs Uber for Latam, and George is a good friend, and we were talking about how we approach product market fit in a region, and both like Uber and Stripe and so on. And I think that George was telling me, it's like Uber has stronger market fit in Latin America than it does in the US.
Right.
And that's super interesting, right? Because it's like, hey, it's a region that where there's a lack of security,
right,
where, you know, safety and security are big issues. So you need safe transport, where there isn't a lot of options in transportation, where there has not been, you know, enough investment in and so the solution comes, and, you know, it basically has,
it creates so many jobs for people.
It creates so many jobs for people that, you know, were in the informal economy before, right. And now, well, we can argue whether, you know, it's a gig economy and so on and so forth, but it's different where we're coming from.
Yes.
It's different places that we're coming from, and that's the way that we're trying to approach it at Stripe. And you know, I think that I took this job because first of all, the mission totally resonates with me.
The mission is amazing.
Yeah, the mission is amazing. You know, growing the GDP of the internet. Who doesn't want to do that? Right? It's like, everyone. Who doesn't want to do that? And
it's also so. I keep telling my team this, but it's so. There's such an elegance in the simplicity of it. Everyone understands exactly what it means. Every word is like perfectly placed. That, yes, kudos to the Collison brothers for that mission.
Yeah,
because
totally. I'm with you. I think that nobody understands what we do. That's certainly, like, people ask me, like, you work for Stripe, what does a Stripe do? That's a payment processor. And it's like, oh, well, we're not really, but okay, let's leave it there, because do you have an hour? Right. And but I think that that again, we're talking about enabling an ecosystem of business entrepreneurs, just, you know, people, just regular people that want to make a living,
right.
And they couldn't make a living before in, you know, or maybe the way of making a living was circumscribed to, you know, the 4 blocks where I have my little, you know, store, and right. People can come and buy, and now it's like, well, the world is your right. store, and you can really sell everywhere and to everyone. And that's what we're trying to do at Stripe. We're basically trying to create a platform where people have access to tools and ways to sell and transact and make business with other people and manage your business in a very easy way. And so, you know, that I think for Latin America in particular is it's a huge opportunity. And when you couple that with platforms,
right,
generally speaking, you know, which help tackle the SMB market, which is right. the backbone of the economies in Latin America. It's like, I mean, if you look at Mexico, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, all of these economies have, you know, huge informality, a lot of dependency on small businesses particularly. And when you couple that with platforms, then you have this boom, right? And we've seen that in the last 2 years particularly. And so I think that probably COVID helped.
You think so? That's what's going to be my next question. Do you think COVID helped, slowed down, spurred? What are your thoughts on sort of COVID?
I think COVID helped. I think it's a tricky one, because I mean, from one side, I think, you know, our economies have been hit by COVID like tremendously, right? Like any other, but also, you know, not the greatest political moves in our regions. So basically, we're not in a great place. But you can tell how those who took advantage of platforms, technology, you know, it's like, let me reinvent my business. Let me think about this in a different way. They're thriving, and that's true. I mean, there are many stories about this, right? And so I think that's the switch that we need to basically change. It's like, hey, you know, it's like, it's not going to be like it was before.
Right.
It has changed. And then how are you going to take advantage of all the tools that you have out there to basically reinvent yourself, your small business, your, you know, whatever you're doing. And we're seeing that happening. And so we want to lean into that, and we want to make that happen. So we want to make sure that we give businesses, we're in Mexico and Brazil right now, so we want to make sure we give Mexico and Brazilian businesses the opportunity to basically go out to the world. I mean, Mexico is an export economy,
right?
It's naturally an export economy,
right?
So moving money between borders is one of the things that is the most painful things that you can ever.
Yes.
Right. It's like, just try to do a bank transfer from, point A to point B outside of your country. It's like
even inside your country, it's very difficult, more difficult than it needs to be. But yes, the remittance market is really, really hard and really expensive.
Super expensive. Yeah, and a lot of friction.
A lot of friction.
So think about, all these businesses that want to do commerce in the world.
Right.
And that want to sell everywhere. It's like if you have a store in Oaxaca that's making crafts, why can't you just sell to people in the US?
Right.
Or, people in Japan or whatever, people like Oaxacan craft anyway, right? And so, but doing that it's an art,
right,
and a science. And so we're trying, to unlock the potential of what we call the global platform, global payments and treasury network, which is what we call the GPTN, which is, I would say, the plumbing of Stripe. If you want to think of, how we're building, it's like we're building on top of this global payments and treasury network that will allow any company, any individual in the world to move money from point A to point B in a seamless way. We're still working on that, but that's what we want to do.
So one of the things that I'm so taken by Stripe is in this mission of moving any money from point A to point B is you look at other companies of sort of the same scale or that have, that are also thinking about these problems, but they tend to be American companies doing global business. And the feeling that I get from Stripe is that it is a global company, partly headquartered in the United States, partly headquartered in Ireland, but with really an ability to do local business, and that it is not this sort of American mentality that is coming in, which I think has been really good in some ways, but I think that, in my opinion, has probably led to some of the friction points in payments. How do you all maintain that, that agility to respond to the local market conditions while also scaling at the rate that you're scaling?
So I'm glad to hear that you perceive a company like that, because I think that we are like that with its challenges, right? Mm-hmm. Also, and because at the end of the day, the US market is so big, right? And it draws a lot of attention.
Right.
But then again, the opportunity is out there, and it's
right.
like, okay, how do we balance out the innovator's dilemma, right?
Right.
It's like Mr. Christensen,
right.
Rest in peace. He said it many times.
Exactly.
So how do you do that? And I think that what Stripe has done is, because the company is very, I think what I've found in the last 2 years that I've been there almost is we're very intentional, mm-hmm. like very thoughtful and very intentional in the way we do things and in our culture. And so maybe it takes us a little while to do things because we really thought them through. Mm-hmm. And the company started this with this idea that they had to build product and engineering teams globally, that the products and engineering teams could not sit in like Townsend Street in San Francisco at right. the time, looking at how people pay in Japan, like right. using Konbini, right? Which right. probably no one knows what that is, only people in Japan.
Right.
So how am I going to build Konbini if I'm sitting in San Francisco? I have right. no idea what Konbini is, right?
Right.
So, and that's part of what drew me to this company. It's like this idea that, again, the world is a playground, that we have to look at the product from the perspective of the user, and the user is not only in the US, is everywhere in the world.
Right.
And that the friction points are very different because our plumbing, right. our foundations, right, are money movement. And money movement is very local.
Right. You think that it should local. Not be, but it is incredibly local.
I mean, I think the first realization is when you go out of the US and you realize that people don't have credit cards.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in a, underdeveloped country.
No, Germany.
Exactly. Germany. Yeah. And the reasons are very different, yeah. right? Why in Mexico people don't have a credit card, or in Germany. But the thing is, you have to understand that if you're only offering credit cards, then you have a problem,
right?
Because then people are not going to buy from you. And so how do you allow businesses, again, to do commerce everywhere in the world,
right.
if you're only looking at how people do commerce in one country in the world. And that's part of what we're trying to do. And that's why the Global Payments and Treasury Network is so central to, what we're doing from a global perspective. And we say global with a G, not capital G, but a ¿cómo se dice minúscula?
Lowercase.
Sorry, lowercase G, because it's just the world, right? So I think that's the most interesting part of my job today. I have a product and engineering team that basically looks after building products for Latin America. We're now focused on building products for Mexico, building products for Brazil. Awesome. But there's also this tension, right? Because we are part of Stripe and we want to build scalable platform. We don't want to go rogue and just build products on our own for Mexico, because then these products won't work on the GPTN.
Right.
So there's this tension, and so we have to manage that tension and make sure that tension doesn't stop us from doing what's right for Mexico, but also allows us to do what's right for Mexico in the context of a Mexican user doing global business.
Right.
So it's interesting.
I love it.
It's a daily challenge.
I don't know if most people know this, but Stripe is super long form writing heavy. And I love that about the company. I think it is like such a smart. At Facebook, we before being at the Venture City, I was at Facebook, and one of the things that our leadership would say is that you can lose context through slides. That slides can be so beautifully edited to lose the context. And so we were also a company, not quite my understanding. I've never worked at Stripe, but not quite to the extent that Stripe is. But really making sure to what you were saying about this sort of like the diligence and the thoughtfulness. It even goes down to the way that you prepare documents and the culture.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I didn't know that about Stripe when I joined Stripe, and then suddenly I joined this like I don't know, the ocean of things I have to read that I have like probably, I don't know, 100 tabs open in my computer right now of things that I have to read, that I will read one day, that I
feel that deeply. Yes, yeah, I also
but it's also a very good exercise of, like, I was coming from Google doing, slide, like Google Slides all the time. So just put your data, put your graph, just, and here it's a lot, again, it's about the thoughtfulness, and the process is probably a little longer. So, we just handed in our plan for 2022 last week. My team did a good job, very good job there. And it took us, a long time to write that document, because as we wrote the document, we realized we haven't thought about this angle we haven't seen. And then, the next day, like, we slept on the doc, and then the next day it's like, somebody left a comment, like, I think we're missing this. And so, again, it's the thoughtfulness about it that I think is very interesting. And it can feel sometimes like it's slowing you down.
Right.
But it really isn't. It's about, okay, I really thought it through, and let's go. Let's do this.
And anticipating sort of, you never know what's going to come at you, but at least you're anticipating some of the possibilities.
And then it also tackles the power of the team.
Yes.
Because, we write this document in it's like 10 people writing the document. Right? Sometimes I'm like, pens down. Nobody writes anything else, because now we have to read and edit, and then you can see 10 people writing at the same time. Oh my God, how is this going to come together? But it does, it does bring like the best of everyone in the team into one doc that is the collective outcome of what we're. It's interesting. It's an interesting process.
I love it. So for my team that's listening, we talked about this in the team meeting, but we will also be doing more of this. Get excited. Now is the part in a normal Q&A, in a fireside chat, where somebody is going to ask you a question about being a woman and balancing it all.
Oh, yeah, right.
But I don't like those questions, because my husband never gets asked that question. He, gets asked more questions like, I don't know, they're like funner questions, like, what do you do in your spare time? People ask my husband. I guess the question that I have is, there is a part like as a woman, as a mother, we're always trying to balance it all, but less as a woman, as a mother, as somebody that, going back to this, that cares deeply. How do you navigate knowing where to put your energy so that you see in your life as a whole the outcomes that you want to see? Because we can't care so deeply about everything, unfortunately, even though I would like to care so deeply about everything, including the airlines. So how do you navigate that part?
We're intense people, right? So we live with intensity. And I say that in a good way. We were having a conversation last night and with Rodrigo, and I don't know what I said about intensity. It's good, it's bad. It's really good. Again, as long as you manage it, right? So I think managing the intensity is important. And you know, the way that I do this is I do checks and balances all the time. Like I do, like it feels like I'm running all the time, and like day after day after day, it's very, you know, very fast paced and so on. But then you have to take a step back and say, hey, what am I doing?
Right.
And am I, you know, putting my energy where I need to put my energy? And so I think you have to do this at least once a week. I try to do it at the end of the day, every day, where I say, did I have like, am I focusing on the right things, right? And this is not just on business-wise, it's everything, like family, friends, whatever. And you know, and then I make conscious decisions. There is this exercise, it's called the Circle of Life. Have you done that?
No.
La Rueda de la Vida. I don't know if you call it the Circle of Life in English, but okay. So we'll do this after. So Rueda de la Vida in Spanish, I don't know how you say it in English, but sometimes you just have to like, you take a circle, and then you start like breaking it down into pieces of what's important for you. First, you make a list, right? It's like, what's important for you? And normally people always say family first, right? It's like family first, but then family is the last thing that's on your agenda or whatever, right? And so you start saying, okay, in my overall, I am going to be dedicating, you know, this amount of my life to family, this amount of my life to work, this amount of my life to my friends and my whatever, exercise, whatever you do, my hobbies, blah, blah, blah. And, but you have to see that like your portfolio in the long term. You cannot see your portfolio every day. Because if you look at your portfolio every day, you're going to be depressed very soon.
Right, you're going to panic. Exactly. Every day you're going to panic.
Like, oh my God, it's like the stock market's crashed. Exactly. So you cannot do that. But you do have to check from time to time and say, maybe I should move some investments, right? Because now whatever, it's the same. I look at it like that. It's my portfolio, and is my portfolio balanced? Is my portfolio giving me what I want right now? And, you know, again, as with your investments, it's like your portfolio, when you have 30 years old and you're super productive and you're in your best professional 30 to 40, your best professional time is different than when you're 60 and you're retired. Right. So it's the same. Where are you going to be investing time and energy right now? And that's how I do it. And I checks and balances. Idea. And it's with me, right? And my contract is with me, and also, you know, with my spouse and with my children, in that way that, you know, they know their mom works, and this is how it works, and this is a contract, okay? And it is what it is. It is the family you were born into. Right.
But you can negotiate a contract. So if you need a little bit more time, we might be able to negotiate it.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. But then again, it's about, at the end of the day, what's important for you, not what's important for anyone else out there. And of course, again, having negotiated that contract on what's important for you and the people you care about. Right. Because, you know, at the end of the day, it's also about incorporating how they would feel around you, right? And it's, I don't believe in balance, by the way.
Well, no, because you're just chasing something that no one really, it's also really hard to define what is balance. And everyone has their own interpretation. And if you don't live to that mold, then you're unbalanced, is the problem that I have with it.
I think that balance means something is not moving. And, you know, it's like,
that's static. True. Yeah.
It's like this. And it's like, no. The world is, your life is dynamic. It changes every day. So you might have had a day where, you know, you worked 16 hours. or 14 hours. And it's like, oh my God, you can't work 14 hours a day forever, right? But then there's a day when you say, I'm going to take the afternoon off, right? I'm going to see my children. I'm just going to spend the time.
Right.
I don't know, whatever it works for you, right? But that kind of structure where people say, oh, I work 9 to 5. After 5, don't send me an email or don't, because then I feel like I don't believe in that.
Right.
So I don't mind if you send me an email at any time. I will decide whether I answer your email or not.
Right.
And I will take the ownership. I won't give you the power to take the ownership.
Yeah. I love that. The agency in your career and also in your life, which I think is something that is hard to, it shouldn't be hard, but you have to be thoughtful about it. So I love the exercise that you're suggesting.
La rueda de la vida.
Sí, I'm going to do that tonight.
We have a few questions from the audience.
Oh, perfect.
I'll read them out.
Okay.
So what patterns have you identified throughout your career that inform you that a company will have a global positive impact? It's from Beatriz Ayala in the audience.
Wow. So there have been a few times where I feel like the company that I've worked at is not necessarily going to make a good impact. And I think the signal is the culture of the company. Is when I see that the walk and the talk are not congruent. And I think it has happened a few times. And then I'm like, there's dissonance in my head, and I can feel this, right? And I'm like, you say something, but what you're doing is not really what you're saying. And then it's like, boom, I have to go.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the pattern recognition is on walking the talk. But it's also about being humble. I think when you're building a global platform, it's really hard. Everyone believes that their vision of the world is the right vision of the world. And that can't possibly be because there are too many people. And so I think you need to have a lot of humility to understand that building globally is really, really tough. And most people don't understand because they think that what I like is what you're going to like exactly the same way.
That's true.
And so being humble is really important.
Yeah, humble and open to learning from others.
Yes,
it's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have one more question from the audience, and it's from Stripe. How do you push regulation so that it accelerates at the pace of technology?
Wow. So I'm not sure that regulation will ever accelerate at the pace of technology, first of all. Mm-hmm. I think that I think regulation also is kind of checks and balances, honestly. Mm-hmm. And technology is a force that it can be used for good and for bad. I mean, it's just a tool. So we need the force of checks and balances. We need to work very close with the regulators to help them understand, why technology can change many of these, again, pervasive problems that we've seen in the region. It's like financial inclusion is the reason why probably Latin America is now booming on VCs. Like 40% of VC goes to fintech, right? And because again, it's such a debt in the region, and we have to be very we have to work very closely, but we also have to be very humble. To your point in that there is a history in the region of things that have not worked well. It's like there are many times in the past of Latin America, in the past history of Latin America, where a financial crisis, banks have been run of banks, or it's like many things have happened, and the regulator has its let's say its role of making sure that people are protected and that people's money are protected. We're talking about people's money here. We're not talking about videos or entertainment. This is people's money,
their livelihood.
Exactly. And so I think we have to do this dance, right? I call it Aikido, because I think that we have to play with the energy that is there, where we push the boundaries. We continue to say hey, what if we looked at this way, understanding that you care about this and that this is important, and we're not, again, playing with videos here. And I think an interesting kind of format that exists in regulation today is a sandbox, right? So a sandbox allows, for those of you who are not in the industry, a sandbox is a special kind of place, regulatory place, where the regulator will work with innovative companies to basically create new business models and understand and keep an eye, okay, and it's kind of this experimenting together so that we can both solve the problem that we're both wanting to solve, which is this, again, financial inclusion debt, but in a way that is responsible. And I think that as Stripe, that's what we believe in. It's like, let's work together. Let's recognize that there is a problem here that we haven't been able to solve. Let's recognize that technology can be a tool for good, and that we have to make sure that it keeps its spirit of being good and of doing, again, helping us bridge this gap in a responsible way. And but let's push it, because otherwise, then we'll continue to have 30% of banked population in our countries.
I mean, I think it's also, and I wonder for your perspective on this, but most people believe that regulators respond to tech, that the stakeholder is a tech company. Or you sit in a tech company and you say, why isn't the regulator moving at the speed of innovation? And the regulators' stakeholders are politicians who are elected by the people. And so you are
very complex.
It's very complex. And I think that there is also, in order for regulators to move faster, there has to be an education for the end user that sometimes we forget about when we're in tech companies, and we're just like, why doesn't the regulator move fast enough? And it's because we're not really thinking about who their end client a little bit is also, which is the end user.
And then the unintended consequences of that end user, right? And so that's important. I recognize that that's important for us to understand. And again, on the thoughtfulness that we were talking about, it's like, hey, it's great. We have to innovate. We have to change. We have to move forward, because otherwise, this opportunity won't be untapped. But we also have to take a step back and think, hey, is what we're doing going to have unintended consequences? And I think that's part of also what the role that the regulator has to play. And again, this is why I think it's like the Aikido, right? When you take the force of your opponent to basically use it for yourself.
And use it as a strength to make a better product, so not antagonistic. I love that, the way that it balances off of each other.
I think, there's this discourse sometimes in the fintech industry that is antagonistic, that I personally don't believe it being in, and Stripe doesn't either. So it's like, hey, this is not a zero-sum game, number one. There's just opportunity in this space. And there's opportunity for everyone. And we should all play together to look how to unlock that opportunity, instead of just trying to eat the same piece of cake that everybody has eaten forever, right? And so let's, and I say that way. And it's like, I don't think that kind of getting in this discourse where it's us, us against them, will help unlock that opportunity.
100%.
So,
Rodrigo, do we have?
So we have one last question. That would be, in your view, how big is the potential for the innovation and growth of the internet economy in Latin America?
Oh, it's huge. We're scratching the surface. I mean, just think of commerce online right now is probably less than 5% overall in the whole Latam.
Wow.
So we can basically, I don't think the world will be ever 100% online. And hopefully it won't be, if you ask me, but I don't know, maybe I'm too old now. When I see the kids going into the metaverse thing,
I like struggle with it, because there is a part, I know, and we're in the industry, and I know.
I'm like, can you come back to Earth and let's touch each other for a while.
Now when my daughter's like, but you're always on your phone, I'm like,
I know.
One last question.
So,
for founders, what tips do you have for them to take advantage of that potential that is still to be unlocked in Latam? Like how to face the challenges that Latam presents, and how to take advantage?
I think solve real problems. So look again to the point that Chesky was making before on the humility of not looking at a problem from, a perspective of, let's say, another country. Just look at your country, look at the region and the problems that we have. We have so many pervasive problems to be solved. And I think that should be the approach. It's like, don't try to copycat the model that, works in the US and it's super successful and bring it just like that to, any country in the region. Just solve the problem that is in the region. And I think a lot of companies have done that, right? And are taking advantage. I think Rappi is a great one, right? That when you see what they have done, it's like very, very tailored to the region. It's like Rappi Cash. What the hell? It's like, that's a product that, nobody, like, I don't even understand how they came up with that idea. It's like brilliant. But it's understanding the nuances of the region that I think are really going to make it or break it with entrepreneurs in Latin America. And we need it because that's really what the region needs to, finally take off and move from the tipping point to the stars.
And 600 million people, double the size of the US. So much opportunity.
So much opportunity. I agree. And it's exciting. It's an exciting time.
Super exciting.
I sometimes wish, like we could be 20 years or younger, because then it's such an exciting time to be an entrepreneur.
We have one last question. So that would be, how does Stripe add value operating from the US with Latin America compared to your competition? What is your main differentiator?
Oh, so we don't operate from the US. We have an office in Mexico. We have an office in Brazil. We have a team in Mexico and a team in Brazil. We're building products for the region. And I think the main differentiator is that we see the internet as a global playground. And we don't think of, an SMB in Mexico just being circumscribed to selling to Mexicans. And we think that they can sell everywhere. And so they should be able to. So we're creating that global network that will allow them to do business with anyone. And if you have tried to sell your products, outside of your local place, you'll understand the complexity of it. And it doesn't sound as complex as it is, but it is very complex. Moving money around the world is super complex. And also, we want to look at very particular opportunities that we see in the region that we believe are not necessarily going to be opportunities for Stripe in the US. And we want to tackle that again. And that's why we've built a team that's local, that understands the region, and that will basically build products for the region.
Following up on that question, besides Mexico and Brazil, what are the next countries that Stripe?
I know, I can't tell you.
No.
We have plans. That's all I can tell you.
We're going to leave that as a teaser. Thank you, everyone.
We're coming, wherever you are, we're coming.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This was
and Laura and Rodrigo and everyone. You have to come to this office. It's amazing.
Our first event at this campus. I have to thank Connor, but especially Rodrigo from the VentureCity team for putting this together. It was his idea, his execution, and all of his planning. He's Mariate's cousin, which makes it really a part of the family. So it's not only is she a part of the TVC family because of work, but also through Rodrigo. And we're just so grateful for him on the team. And thank you, because this was amazing.
Thank
and we're so happy.
I'm literally using my family influences to be. I am. To be here with you.
That is awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.